Well, greetings and welcome to Healthcare Leadership Live. My name is Mike Lyons, and I am the guy behind Healthcare Leadership Live. And, the reason I do this show is to bring on experts and to share information that'll help clinical healthcare leaders to be the best that they can be and stay on the cutting edge and stay informed. And today we're going to talk about all that stuff, but especially stay on the cutting edge because our topic has to do with artificial intelligence. Our guest today is Eva Minkoff. Eva, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Mike. I'm really thrilled to be here since healthcare leadership is what I live and breathe.
Yeah. And your firm's name is Transformental. Is that correct?
Transformental, yes, that's the consulting firm that I'm a co-founder of. I also have my own side business, Bold Being. But yes, I'm proud to announce that I am part of this wonderful founding team, and we'll get to the meat, but supporting the humans who are undergoing AI transformations.
Cool. Well, that's an important aspect, right? To this AI thing. The change. I mean, that's what it's really all about right now. And so, you said that you work in the healthcare industry. I'm kind of curious, what are some of the, just talking AI right off the bat here, what are some of the tools that you see people wanting to implement when it comes to AI right now in their clinical healthcare?
Well, to be honest, I actually think that question is key in what's problematic. I'm going to be frank.
Cool.
People jump to what are the tools that they should be using without considering why they're using those tools. And I don't mean for like what exactly you want to accomplish in terms of like tasks and outcomes, but actually what you want to accomplish as an organization, noting who makes up your organization. I start by asking organizational leaders, like, what is already strong in the clinic and how could technology support it? And also what might be missing so that they're aware of that to build toward, but that would be secondary. So first asking, like, what kind of coworker would lighten the load for your team? So I often see AI as like a new hire, you could say. How would this new hire interact with the people already there? What would partnership look like between your staff and this new hire, this tool? These are all predetermining factors in order to choose those tools. I think of it similarly to when a client, I'm a formal coach, which means we don't actually give advice. Some people don't get that. Coaches don't give advice. We ask very bold questions to help you come to the realizations yourself, is a long story short. And so again, similarly, I could provide a strategic plan and be like, here are some great tools I think they'd optimize what you have going on, what your goals are. But at the end of the day, I need to know more about you and your people before I give you a long list of like my top rated tools, because it doesn't matter. We could brainstorm until the cows come home. And once we do the real work, none of those recommendations may apply anymore.
Do people get kind of surprised by that approach? Is that often not a head scratcher, but a surprising moment when you're like, let's take a break from this and like, let's actually step back and ask a different question. Is that usually surprise folks?
Yes. And depending on the leadership, depending on the organization, that catching them off guard can go in two different directions. If they are not even remotely interested in being human-centered, well, I guess I'll be frank about this. They're going to fail in their AI implementation. Maybe it's immediate, maybe it's long-term, but they will. And I know right now that one of the most prominent sentiments is FOMO, to put it plainly, and feeling like they're not caught up. So by racing and trying to keep up by implementing tools as fast as possible without considering the humans behind it who are partnering with it, it like inevitably will not work out. unless you got super, super lucky and somehow your culture is like unshakable and you know your people so well without having ever ventured into the world of AI before. All that to say, I wouldn't say it is likely. And so when I say that leadership, kind of look at it two ways. If you're really not thinking about your people and don't see that as a worthy consideration, because some people see that as slowing down, it's I just like to say I would not advise it.
Yeah.
And it is unfortunately a mistake that many still make. But I think that is finally changing. We're noting just how imperative building that foundation is for your clinic, for your organization, before such a rapid change. And I'll just make one note before we go any further. I'm using the word transformation. A lot of that word is being thrown around all over the place right now. And I want to give a very, very simple definition so we have context for this. Transformation is not change. It is not improvement. It is not enhancement. It is something completely new. I say it's not like a circle that became a bigger circle. It's like a square that became a triangle. And we are inevitably in a time of transformation because this is change at such an accelerated pace that in order for humans to adapt and thrive, it requires just a shift in how we are showing up as professionals and as people.
Okay, there was a few nuggets in there that kind of stimulated my brain. So first of all, as an HR professional in clinical healthcare, I'm loving what you said about, putting the people first and putting the people at least first in the process, thinking about things from a human-centric perspective. I wonder, I guess there are people out there that just never get that, right? They never get that. They never think about it and they go down the road and they crash and burn. That kind of sounds like what you were suggesting there.
Yeah, don't like to always be so harsh or presumptuous.
I'm just going to lay it out there.
How I'm feeling right now. I'm feel like being straight with people.
Yeah, just lay it out there. And then the other thing I was thinking is, transformation. What I was conjuring when you were talking was kind of like the caterpillar to the butterfly kind of a thing. And it's like, how did that even happen? Like, I couldn't have even imagined where we were going to get from where we started. And so, I don't know, maybe is there an example that you can think of how that might look to someone who's saying, I can't even picture where this might go? I was just thinking that I would go from writing a document in 10 minutes to writing it in 2 minutes. Like, that's not transformation. So can you give maybe an example of what that might look like to wrap my head or my small brain around?
Sure. And just to use another framing that I've liked also in coaching, so transformation like in individuals, I think of it as unrecognizable.
Wow.
Now, I said transformation is not change, but to simplify, you can think of it as like micro changes over time to the point where if you look at from point A to point B or the other side, you are unrecognizable. Your role is unrecognizable. The way you run your clinic is unrecognizable. And there are so many ways that looks. I mean, even thinking about the common use of ChatGPT. For most people who use it on a regular basis, probably throughout their day, their workday is unrecognizable from what it used to be. I think I can pretty firmly say that. I know mine has been. I like to practice what I preach, and so I use AI a lot. And therefore, if we aren't simultaneously adapting, transforming ourselves to go along with what externally is transforming, we're going to get lost in it.
This show is sponsored by Seasoned Advice HR Services, where I help clinical healthcare businesses to make more money and save more money by hiring better, retaining better, and reducing your HR risk. If you would like an HR assessment or ongoing HR support, please reach out to me at seasoned-advice.com. I was actually just having a conversation with Perplexity earlier today, just to give an example from my life. And actually, this wasn't even a business application. It was my personal finances. I was trying to get the app or the AI to help me categorize my personal financial, expenses. And I was having a conversation, I was saying, hey, do this, do that. And I was trying to figure out how to put it in the right language. And I could have never imagined, 6 months ago or a year ago, sitting there talking into my computer and giving it instructions like it was, an employee. And I was, believe me, much more direct and rude, I guess, with the AI than I would with an employee, but it seems to like that better. And so I guess my my next thought is, if you are going to embark on a transformation and you want to put people at the center, what is a step that you might want to think about doing with your people? I know you said, like, think about what kind of person would you want to hire, but if we're thinking about just the people in the organization, to get them ready for transformation, what is something that you might want to do?
I think of it like teaching a child to swim. You start in the shallow end, you build confidence, and you only move deeper when the kid feels steady. The goal is that you want to build trust. You want to build stability, and therefore opportunity for ease in adaptability. Again, not speed. I'm not saying, by the way, that this can't be done at a rapid rate, but it cannot be skipped over. Even if you see it as a slight pause, a slight slowing down, you'll be able to move much faster later. So all that to say, how small can you start so people feel safe trying something new? When we started the Transformental business, we did a deep dive in the literature to find out why transformations weren't working in the AI implementation so far, because a fun statistic is that only 1 out of 3, and it's even really less than that, organizations that implement AI right now succeed. Almost all of them fail. Yeah. Which obviously costs an insane amount of money and time and an effort. And therefore, if you can start by, the literature said specifically that the reason for this was resistance from the people utilizing the AI. And resistance comes in all shapes and forms, by the way. Sometimes it can be very internal and not shared. It can look like fear that's not conveyed to employees and to leaders, but it can also look like fighting back and outbursts and almost boycotting AI. Like, there's so many different forms of human resistance, and it's really coming to an all-time high during this new era, this age of AI. So that's why I'm really just harping on the baby steps, if you will. And that is different for every organization. But what is the smallest thing that you can do, the smallest thing you can implement? I don't know, maybe it is using ChatGPT with your employees for a certain type of task. Or using, in clinics, what's it called? Begins with an A, and I'm losing it right now, but it's one of those ambient note takers. Which are starting to be used. And while they're a little bit new and great for taking notes, not always great at organizing notes yet. For my husband is a physician, by the way, and so he started practicing with this in his hospital system. And for instance, he'll say, sure, it takes all of the notes, but I have to adapt to it rather than it adapting to myself and how I use the notes. But the fact that that's where he's starting. So actually, this is a good example. So he's in a major hospital system, and he's one of like 10 doctors that are testing this out right now. And that's how you have to go about it. You have to start with tests, because if you gave everyone this ambient note taker in every room. And this was the response that my husband is having.
Mm.
You may even put the brakes on using AI altogether. Be like, whoop, we can't do this. Not worth our time. And there may be even more trepidation about implementing it later when it truly becomes the norm.
That makes so much sense. I can imagine, yeah, if everyone tries something and everyone has maybe like a slightly negative response, then it's been colored. The whole thing has been tainted, I think. And that makes a whole lot of sense. So learn, take a little step forward.
Swim in
And
the shallow end first.
swim in the shallow end. Yeah. Well, when you said that analogy, I was picturing there's this whole group of people that believe that you should just throw kids in the pool in a totally non ironic way, and I'm like, oh my god, that's frightening.
I actually have like quite a lot of opinions on that, but we're not talking because I actually know that system, and it's not exactly throwing people in a pool. But I will continue to use that analogy in the way that I'm aware of that technique.
Yeah.
And it is to demonstrate that you have innate capabilities that you may not be aware of. And then you can try them out and see what's there, what's not for you, or like what's top of mind, what you can access immediately. And if you can't, you take a step back and you take it a step earlier, prior, whatever, smaller step.
Yeah.
But we are much more capable than we think. But making mass assumptions on what every human is capable of and can easily adapt to can be very misleading.
You know, this is I'd like to take an opportunity just for anyone that's listening live here on this beautiful Friday. If you have a comment or a question for Eva, she is a true pro at this. And so if you got a question or comment, drop it into the LinkedIn comments. We'll see the comment and we can chat about it. Or if you just want to say hi, if you're an Eva fan, we'd love for you to say hi. That's welcome as well. You know, you mentioned that when organizations don't take the right approach, they're too hasty, they don't put people at the center, things fail. But I was wondering, like, what does that look like? What does failure look like? Because I can think about some consequences that could have many different consequences. So what are some of those consequences of failure so we can paint a good, scary picture for people so they will not make that mistake?
Oof. Well, I'll first share where some of the particular pitfalls come from that gap.
Okay.
Because I think that's just important to clarify a little bit further. People rush because everyone's feeling behind. As I said, teams don't talk openly about confusion or fear. Individuals don't talk about confusion or fear. Leaders certainly don't talk about confusion or fear, which is problematic in terms of relating to their teams. As I said, FOMO, fear of missing out, really leads. And in this space, clinical and administrative worlds see change differently. So that in and of itself can lead to, really poor outcomes. And also training will rarely happen once. It'll happen over and over and over again because of the resistance, because of the lack of foundation that's been built. So those are some of the, like, what's happening leading to the consequences. And I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but truly we're talking about usually months, sometimes years, even at this point, of a loss in or an underutilization of, I was going to say budget. It's not budget, but just using your finances poorly. And it's usually a major investment, even if it is a somewhat smaller attempt, because it's sort of like guessing at this point. Even if you're looking and you're getting the best represented tools, there's always going to be better tools. I hate to say it, but that is true. That is something that I understand as a fear many people have. So What's coming to mind, I'm sorry I'm hesitating so much, is ironically, the mental load cost is tremendous.
Mm.
And it's not just on the effort, the time, and the finances essentially lost, or at least not utilized to the greatest extent. But what really goes unsaid is AI implementation threatens identity.
Mm.
Yes, I just said that.
Mind blown.
This is the first time in our history where we have something that really can almost mimic and better our brains, our thought processes, and whether the threat be like to your literal job and occupation, which is true for most people at some point, or it's just to your capabilities as a person. Like, do I ever, I mean, I guess we've had calculators forever, but like, do I ever need to do math again? Do I ever need to memorize facts again?
Mm.
It's just, it's such a big shift from everything that we've grown up with. And what almost every person considers to be at least one or a few of their skill sets. And that's coming from someone who I would say thrives in the soft skill set arena. And still, even for me, I think to myself, there are AI coaches out there, there are AI therapists.
Mm.
Major disclaimers there that I won't go into right now. But you know, when I realized what we were about to embark on, this new age of AI, I thought to myself, oh yeah, I chose a profession that isn't going to be affected by AI. Wrong. Like, big spoiler for me. And so I've decided to embrace it. And I actually have like an AI sidekick coach that I use.
Mm.
But there are things that I know I'm going a tiny bit of a tangent here, but there are elements that AI can never replace, like human connection. And since we're talking about the healthcare space in particular here, that is actually our greatest asset. I think of connection as like the new clinical currency. No matter what AI replaces in terms of your actual tasks or the definition of your role as a clinician leader, really any role in healthcare, it will never replace your ability to be with other humans in whatever that means for your role. AI cannot automate that. It cannot replace that.
Mm.
I mentioned my husband earlier. He's a pediatric gastroenterologist. He does a lot of endoscopies, colonoscopies. At some point, and maybe not too far from now, that will likely be replaced by robots. It's already kind of like a video game. But who he is with his patients, being with them in pain and discomfort, including emotional pain, is imperative to how that care unfolds. Even saying something as simple as, and I think as powerfully as, I believe you, especially when it comes to like functional pain that's not easily diagnosable by a test or a scope. I don't even remember why I got on this topic, but I just really care about this particular use case for AI, as well as what will continue to differentiate us.
Yeah. Well, I think, that's certainly one of the topics that I think is on everyone's mind is what is the endpoint of this transformation for human society? And that's a huge question, and you started to really touch on it there. But it's rewarding to be in a profession where human connection really does matter, and it probably has a bearing on real medical outcomes, I would think.
Oh yeah, there's like endless research at this point that I've collected on how communication, connection, the dynamic between, let's just even say, a doctor and a patient influences outcomes.
Yeah, so there's definitely a place. We'll go with that for now. There's definitely a place for humans, right, in the future world, and that's not to be concerned about. I feel like that's pretty far away, but you talked about the identity threat of AI, and that's very understandable to someone whose job will be really affected. What does that mean for me? What does that mean for who I am? Do you think that the presence of AI, I've heard a lot of people say the presence of AI will really just elevate you. Actually, at my wife's job, I always mention my wife's job because they're always great examples, often of what not to do. But they've said to their staff, hey, we're going to give everyone an AI, and you're going to be like the supervisor of your AI. Now you're all going to be supervisors, which sounds ridiculous to me, but do you think that this implementation, AI implementations generally, has the potential to help people elevate and do more advanced thinking? Is that a benefit to some of the transformation? And if not, what are some of the benefits that you can articulate to people to help with transformation?
No, 100%. I agree with that sentiment. In fact, a lot of people are starting to use augmenting intelligence rather than artificial intelligence, which I'm personally a big fan of.
Mm.
Um, and talking about being unrecognizable, I think what humanity will be able to produce in the even very near future will be unrecognizable.
Mm.
I was reading this book called The Fourth Age, which I highly recommend. That's all really about the age of AI being the fourth age in humanity.
Mm.
And the author was mentioning how, let's say, John Lennon had AI back when he was writing Beatles songs. Can you imagine? Because you can write a song so easily now with AI. I could write a brilliant banger at this point. But imagine the next level of creativity and beauty that John Lennon could have produced if he had AI. And this goes for actually a lot of the arts, because art is generated from an inner creativity. And if you already are given, if you choose to use AI, a baseline of creativity that AI can produce, and then layer on what your gift is from there, unrecognizable. We don't even know what that looks like yet. So you could call me, an optimist, a glass half full kind of gal, but I think regardless of the perspective, a lot of what I'm saying is fact. Like we will see new creations, innovations in this world that we can't even fathom yet.
Mm. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's already happening. Yeah, and I've we've all seen that on social media, right? These creations that are just blow our minds, and it was not real,
Yeah. There's
and
a whole conversation around ethics, responsibility that is not to be undermined by any means. But I guess I am in this point at this point, like shining a light on what's possible.
yeah.
In the
That's great, because earlier today I was on my LinkedIn feed and a friend of mine had posted a book cover that he was reading, and basically the gist of the title was AI is going to basically result in the end of humanity, and we're all dead basically. And I was like, oh god, like I don't know.
Another reason I recommend the book, The Fourth Age, is it actually, as neutrally as possible, looks at all the different frameworks, perspectives of how the future will look with AI. And I really appreciate it. And it actually all originates from, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the exact term, but it's something like, do you believe humans are machines? And based on your answer, it actually determines how you would see the future with AI.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Like, do you think humans have a soul?
Right.
You could have a religious conversation within there. It's pretty fascinating. I highly recommend that. If I had to walk away with just two overarching recommendations in this new age, it would be: one, play with AI. I take those baby steps, jump into the shallow end, whatever that may be, if you aren't already, and also consider what it means to you and what could be possible for you if you had an augmentation of your strengths?
Well, I think that's a wonderful place to conclude our conversation. It's a positive note there. Play with AI, consider where it can take you, consider where it could take your clinical business, and, consider the people element in that transformation, or else you could have some major negative consequences in your business. Eva, thank you so much for joining me today. What a stimulating conversation.
I get on a little bit of a passionate high horse about this topic. I could probably talk about it forever, but thank you for anyone who has listened thus far, and always happy to have further, more in-depth, more nuanced conversations on this topic.
Absolutely. I took a ton of notes here. And I just want to thank everybody who is listening live or who's listening on the recorded version of the show. I think you've got to stay up to date on changes that are happening and insights. And if you take a little bit of a nugget of information and you run down the road with it without getting insights from an expert like Eva, we talked about, you can have some negative consequences. So I'd love, if you enjoyed this show, subscribe, follow, comment, check me out. By the way, Eva, how can someone get in touch with you if they want to learn more about Transfermental and the work that you do?
I think the best way to connect with me really is LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm Eva Minkoff on LinkedIn, and I might be the only one.
Okay. Wow. One and only.
Transfermental.
Well, that brings this episode of Healthcare Leadership Live to a conclusion. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show on your podcast app and share it with someone who would value the content. I promise to bring you more guests and content to help make you a better healthcare clinical leader. I also invite you to subscribe to my HR newsletter for healthcare leaders. You can find information about that at seasoned-advice.com. Now go out there and lead with confidence.